Imagine your body as a tiny city, not a clean, shiny city. A weird little city with neighborhoods that all need each other. The lungs are the oxygen market, the stomach is the food district, the liver is the cleanup factory, the kidneys are the recycling center, and every cell is a tiny house asking for supplies. Blood is the traffic. It carries oxygen, food, cleanup messages, and waste through the city all day long. And the heart keeps that traffic moving. Every beat is like all the roads getting a green light again. At the top of the city sits the brain, the president. Very important, very needy. It gives orders, makes memories, notices danger, and still needs deliveries like everyone else. Then one day the pump stops. No dramatic music, no slow fade, just stop. The heart was squeezing, and then it is not. This is second zero. And the strange part is that your body does not shut down all at once. It is not like someone turns off one giant light switch. It is more like every traffic light in the city turning red at once. Very organized. Very not organized. At the first moment, blood pressure falls fast. The blood that was racing through your body starts to slow down. The little oxygen trucks are still on the roads, but nobody is pushing traffic forward. New oxygen is not getting delivered properly. Trash is not being picked up properly. The markets, factories, recycling center, and tiny houses all start having problems. Your heart, the traffic boss, has left the building. Rude. But your brain does not instantly understand what happened. For a few seconds, it still has a little oxygen left in the blood nearby. So the brain keeps working. Neurons keep sending tiny electric messages. Thoughts can still exist. The city may already be in deep trouble, but the president is still at the desk, still pressing buttons, still expecting the morning report. For a tiny window, you may still be you. That is the first weird thing. Death does not always begin with nothing. Sometimes it begins with the whole city saying, something is wrong, and the brain president saying, I am still doing paperwork. Then the oxygen problem arrives. The brain is small compared to the whole body, but it uses a huge amount of energy. It is like one government building demanding the biggest lunch order in the city. When the deliveries stop, the brain complains first. After about several seconds without good blood flow, consciousness usually starts to fail. The outside world begins to disappear. Eyes may stop making useful pictures. Ears may stop making useful sound. The person may collapse. From the outside, it can look like everything is gone. But from the inside, scientists are still asking a strange question. Is the brain only fading out? Or does it sometimes do one last burst of activity? For a long time, the simple idea was easy. Heart stops. Traffic stops. Brain turns off. The end. Nice clean diagram. Too clean. Because in some research, the dying brain did not look like a quiet lamp slowly going dark. It looked more like a room that suddenly turned every light on at once. In one well-known study from the University of Michigan, researchers watched the brain activity of 4 very sick patients as life support was removed. This was not a movie scene. It was careful hospital research. And in 2 of those patients, after oxygen dropped, the brain showed a sharp rise in a kind of activity linked with awareness, memory, and dreaming. The activity was not proof of what anyone experienced. Science cannot open a little window and ask the brain, "Excuse me, what are you seeing in there?" But it was surprising. The expected picture was a shutdown. Instead, there was a surge. That is a very strange word for a brain that is supposed to be leaving. Surge. Like the city lights flicker, then suddenly the whole downtown glows. For a second, the brain may not be quieter. It may be louder. Not always. Not for everyone. But sometimes, maybe. And this is where the science starts bumping into stories people have told for a long time. Some people who were revived after cardiac arrest describe strange experiences. A bright light, a feeling of floating, a deep calm, a sense of watching from outside the body, or memories appearing in a way that does not feel normal. Now, we have to be careful. These stories do not prove what happens after death. They do not prove a secret doorway in the sky. They do not prove a tiny ghost elevator. Science is not there with a clipboard saying, please rate the afterlife from 1 to 5 stars. What science can study is the body, the brain, the timing, and what people remember if they come back. And what people remember is often not what you might expect. When people say, my life flashed before my eyes, you might imagine the big moments. Birthday, wedding, big trophy, the day everyone clapped and you looked amazing. But some reports are much smaller than that. A childhood room, a face, a smell, a little walk, a tiny memory that seems almost too ordinary to matter, which is rude, honestly. If the brain is going to make a final slideshow, you would expect it to choose the premium package. But the brain may not care what looks important on paper. The brain may care about what felt alive. That is one of the most human parts of this story. At the edge of everything, the mind might not reach for a movie trailer. It might reach for a small warm second you forgot you kept. But while the brain is doing whatever the brain is doing, the rest of the city has its own problems. The tiny city is losing power. Cells still need oxygen. The tiny houses still want deliveries. The shops still need fuel. The trash still has to leave. The little waste trucks are supposed to keep rolling toward the city limits. You know how this part works. Those trucks. Without oxygen, cells switch to emergency mode. Emergency mode is not elegant. It is like the city saying, "Fine, we will run the hospital on a flashlight and a potato." The body can make a little energy without oxygen, but it is messy and weak. Waste begins to build up. Chemicals drift out of balance. Cells get stressed. The kidneys, the recycling center, cannot fix the blood if the blood is not moving through them. The lungs, the oxygen market, can have oxygen ready, but it does not help much if the delivery roads are frozen. The liver, the cleanup office, cannot calmly sort chemicals while the city is sliding into blackout. The whole system becomes less like a city and more like a group project where everyone forgot the deadline and the group chat is on fire. Still, this does not mean every part dies at the same speed. That is another important idea. Death is not one single door closing everywhere at the same time. Some parts of the body fail quickly. Some cells last longer. Some processes keep going for a while, even after the person cannot wake up, talk, move, or breathe on their own. The body is not a light switch. It is a city with many neighborhoods, and the neighborhoods go dark at different speeds. This is why emergency medicine can sometimes bring people back after the heart stops. If help comes fast enough and oxygen and blood flow return, the tiny city may restart. The pump can be shocked. Air can be pushed into the lungs. Blood can move again. The roads can open. The oxygen market can send trucks again. The recycling center can start filtering again. The brain president can receive deliveries again. And suddenly the neediest office in the city says, "Finally." But the longer the brain goes without oxygen, the more dangerous it becomes. There is no magic timer that is safe for everyone. Bodies are different. Situations are different. Temperature, health, medical care, and timing all matter. So the simple version is this. Fast help matters because the brain is impatient. Very impatient. It is not waiting politely in line. It is banging on the table asking where the oxygen went. And that brings us back to the first minute. In that first minute, 3 things can be true at the same time. The heart may have stopped, the person may be unconscious, and the body may not be completely finished yet. That is why this moment feels so strange. It is not alive in the normal way. It is not gone in the simple cartoon way. It is a middle place, a biological emergency, a city in blackout, a president losing deliveries, maybe flashing with activity, maybe building a strange little dream from whatever pieces it still has. And then, if the heart does not restart, the damage spreads. The brain cannot keep working without oxygen. Cells begin to break down. Systems fail. The body slowly stops being a city and becomes matter again. That sounds cold, but it is also the truth every living thing carries. The same body that ran, laughed, ate snacks, forgot keys, loved people, and got annoyed by tiny noises was always made of fragile little parts, tiny pumps, tiny signals, tiny cells doing tiny jobs. Life is not one giant magical flame. It is billions of small jobs happening at the same time. And death, at least in the body, is what happens when those jobs can no longer stay organized. That is scary, but it is also kind of amazing, because it means being alive is not normal in the boring way. It is normal only because it happens to us every day. Your heart keeps squeezing. Your blood keeps traffic moving. Your brain keeps demanding. Your lungs keep stocking the oxygen market. Your kidneys keep running the recycling center. Your liver keeps doing suspicious chemical paperwork. Your cells keep cleaning, building, burning fuel, sending messages, fixing mistakes, and pretending this whole operation is simple. It is not simple. You are a very complicated little city walking around in shoes. And the city is open right now. Lights on, deliveries moving, recycling center open, oxygen market stocked, president complaining. Everything somehow working. So maybe the strangest part of death is not only what happens after the heart stops. Maybe the strangest part is what was happening before. All those tiny systems kept you here. Long enough to remember a face, long enough to hear a laugh, long enough to sit in the sun for no important reason. And if the brain really does reach for small memories near the edge, maybe that makes sense. Maybe the small moments are not small to the brain. Maybe they are proof the city was alive. Not the trophies. Not the perfect days. The ordinary little flashes. A room, a hand, a dog sleeping nearby, a tree outside a window, the stuff you barely noticed while the pump was still working. That may be the quiet twist. When the heart stops, the body becomes a crisis. But while the heart is beating, even an ordinary second is doing something impossible. It is keeping the whole tiny city lit.